Firma. John. Joe just texted.
January, Michigan, what kind?
Who are we missing?
A
Jacob.
world record meeting, maybe.
Who's Jacob?
Maybe not.
You never know.
Has anybody heard from
I
Jacob?
just gave it
Yeah, there you go.
Shannon, am I on? I hear it.
It's just a matter of like, you got like 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So get that, yep.
Uh-huh.
Need a little push button thing that.
Okay, let's get at this.
Then it says the order that they came up in.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for fighting the elements to get here so early this morning. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the board on January 14th, 2025. Can we, I asked Jim this morning to open with prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we give thanks for the beauty of the day. We give thanks for gathering together as a commission. Be with us throughout the day as we do work to make Ottawa County a better place. Give us grace, give us peace, especially with some of us that have had hairy ride into the meeting today. But be with us as we meet and work together. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dusty, can you take the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Barry,
Here.
Mr. Georgezma, Mr. Zylstra,
Here.
Mr. Bonema,
Here.
Mr. Moss,
Here.
Mrs. Wenzel.
Here.
Peoples.
Here.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Here.
Mr. Kyers, Mr. Bruger.
Here.
Mrs. Miedema.
Here.
Here we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Do we have any correspondence?
None from us.
Okay. So this is the time for public comment. Anybody would like to address the board? Feel free to come. Oh, do you have a list? Is there a list?
We did not have any pre-registered public comments.
Okay, good. So anybody else would like to come up? You're welcome.
Bill Buck, Georgetown Township. Just kind of curious how the procedures and decision-making process is going on. Seems to be a lot of things going on without the public eye. And a few years ago, that was kind of brought up in the media as a real negative thing. And it just seems unfair right now that the public isn't being brought in to see how some of these decisions are being made. And I just wish that the current board would make things a little bit more transparent with how they're operating. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Anyone else? Anybody online? No? Okay. So the next item is the approval of the agenda. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Any comments? Okay, let's vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. There's nothing in consent, so we have one action item, and that's the approval of the board rules that we discussed for forever and ever last week. So I need a motion to approve the board rules. The mode. Thank you, Jordan. Okay, discussion. Allison.
Can we just go through maybe section by section just to see if anyone had anything? I think most of them are just going to be, yep, we're good. I have several items. Some of them are just simple edits, I think. And then other ones I do with having a little bit more time now with a cleaned up copy. I have a little bit more I'd like to discuss. Are you guys okay with me just going through like page 2? For example, I would just recommend to omit just the word article at the end of Article 1, authority and order of precedence. I just think you don't need that word. It's just a
So-
simple edit.
So I don't have any problem with doing this. Do you? Anybody?
I got a full hour, so yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. So where are you at, Allison?
Page 2 of the board rules. It's just a simple edit. Article 1, authority and order of precedence. I would make a motion to strike the word article at the end.
Yep.
That's it for that page.
I think it's just setting up Article 2 though, Allison. Isn't it?
I don't think so. It was an extra add from Prior years, it did not have that extra word, and Article 2 underneath it right has the article listed.
It's in the table of contents, right?
It's in the table of contents.
Okay.
That's what she's talking about.
Right, but I think
Maybe my version says. differently.
Oh, yeah, that seems like it's
Redundant?
probably a typo.
That's all it was. is
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make it nice and clean. That's all.
Article.
Next one, Allison.
Okay, next one, Rule 2.3. I would like to make a motion to change the last paragraph from Rule 2.3 to read. I'm going to add one sentence to start it. The chairperson shall appoint all committee assignments for the ensuing year. And then I would like the next sentence to read, for all active commissioner assignments on non-standing board committees, county and community-based commissions, authorities, boards such as CMH and Parks and Recreation, the chairperson shall make all assignments for seats that are dedicated to the board, subject to bylaws, ordinances, state statute, and county policies, comma, subject to approval by the Board of Commissioners. And I'm happy to provide my reasoning for it if you'd like to hear it.
so. For discussion purposes, I'll second your motion.
Thank you. And I can repeat anything first before I give discussion on that if you'd like,
So
John.
let,
So I was actually thumbing through, you're on page 14, last paragraph of Rule 2.3, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
so we just want, so basically what you're asking here is the last line. You want the assignments that has been historically given to the chairperson now to be required board action.
Actually, can I speak discussion on this, please? May I speak on this?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So if you go back in our history of the county and you look back up historically, it's actually how I'm motioning for it to be read, bringing it back to what we've done historically as a county. So if you go back in 2022, the January organizational meeting on letter 12A, it is action item 12A. It actually reads how I'm pointing out, making sure that the chairperson is basically collecting assignments for the board, for different boards and commissions, but then it goes through for a final vote. It's asking for the board to give the approval of that chair. Same thing in 23 happened, same thing in 24. I didn't go back further, but I do know that historically, for sure, starting in 22, so before the last 2 years, this was historical practice. There was always a detailed sheet for full transparency to the public and the board at the very first organizational meeting, reaffirming that those are true.
And I do have copies of those if anyone needs to see them, those last 3 years.
How was it done over the last 2 years?
The last 2 years is the same as Allison has said. So we were just following what had historically been done before us. So
Was it in the board rules of the last 2 years, though?
Yes, so what it had was it had the simple sentence, the chairperson shall appoint all committee assignments for the ensuing year, but it did not speak to adding on the extra authority given to the chair, how it's currently read. It gave actually the
Sure, but it
board.
didn't spell out specifically that it was subject to board action in the board rules.
I'll have to go back in and look a minute. I don't know if you had that.
There was a difference between committees. So she's using the word committees. And historically, and in the board rules and how it's always been done is the committee assignments were just done by the chair. And then the chair would bring all of the appointments for boards and commissions. And typically it was the first meeting and it would be ratified by the board. It'd be approved by the board.
So let me address the first meeting. I don't know how it's possible that until you're elected, which is the first meeting, there could be any assignments to anything, right? And that happened last year. It didn't happen this year. We waited until we were actually assigned or sworn into office before we've taken action on this, right? And in prior year, the board chair made assignments, and we clarified that this clause dealt with community-based committees as distinguished from standing committees, which 5.1 already addressed, right? So this isn't a change of anything. It's a clarification of where it's been.
It's not accurate. I agree with changing it so that it's not done on the first day. I think that's great. The way that it's historically been done is the chair of the board would set the committees and then would bring recommendations for all of the other assignments. So what Commissioner Miedema is suggesting is we stick with what's historically been done. The chairperson brings the community-based commissions, authorities, and board assignments, brings it to the board, and the board votes to approve it.
Josh?
Thanks. We discussed this at length during our last meeting, and I pointed out then, as I will point out now, that on the January 24th meeting of last year, Doug Zylstra moved to change the last sentence on page 4, Rule 2.3 to read, "The chairperson shall nominate all committee assignments for the ensuing year, comma, subject to the board approval." Subject to board approval. The motion failed. Nays: Roger Belknap, Rebecca Curran, Allison Miedema, Kendra Wenzel, Gretchen Cosby, Sylvia Rhodey, Lucy Ebel, and Joe Moss. We've discussed this at length at our last meeting. I will not be discussing it any further. My vote will be no. Thank you.
Joe?
The key words, and I would still vote the same as I did last time. The key words are committee assignments. No one that is looking to change it so that the board chair sends committee assignments for standing committees to the board to be voted on. That's not what anyone's saying. I didn't support that then. I don't support it now. I think the chair should make those appointments. We are not talking about the committees. We're talking about the boards and authorities.
If I could speak to this. When you go back to the paperwork that we were looking at last time, where we had in front of us, strikeouts and changes to the original rules, it does bring some clarity to this. So what it originally said, meaning as, in prior board rules, was the chairperson shall make let's see if I can read it because it gets hard. Chairperson shall appoint committee assignments for the ensuing year. And so just like Joe is saying and Allison is saying, that was talking about our committee assignments, meaning HHS, finance, meaning those main committees that are normal board functions. So the board rules did not at all address all of the extras. And in practicality, the way it was handled, when you go back to our organizational meetings, again, I do agree with pushing it back a little bit. So I'm not arguing that point at all. It makes sense that you get in office first and then you figure it out. So I'm not arguing that. But when you go back to how this was historically handled, it is on all the agendas that the board members do vote for all of the extras. And there was at that meeting, and this could happen at whatever meeting it occurred at, there was a full listing of those extra assignments outside of normal board subcommittees or standing committees, however we want to call them. So there was a full list and we voted on that full list that was included in the packet. And so historically, that is how it was done. The board rules just simply did not address that here in this section. But when you guys rewrote them this year, you chose to include it in that section. So I think that's where some of the confusion is coming in.
Well, I don't think it was, as we talked about this last time, this clause was the change that proposed in this clause was to clarify that we're talking about two different types of committees that the chairperson has the authority to appoint. And you're right, it did say the chairperson has the right to appoint make appointments to committees for the ensuing year. This clause clearly dealt with community-based committees, whether you, and what I hear you say, Joe, is that you're concerned with the language of committee, whether it includes a board or something else, but it was clearly dealing with community-based assignments of commissioners. That's what this clause was dealing with.
It actually wasn't.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting at.
Well, again, this is something we talked about. We distinguished it as 2.3 dealing with community-based assignments versus 5.1, which was standing committee assignments. There's no other interpretation in a contract that would otherwise provide otherwise. So I don't think it's a change of anything. I think we talked about this. I agree.
Well, respectfully, it is a change, and no, they're not the same things. And so the question then is, it is clearly a change when you go back and look historically, and it just clearly is. So if this is something that you want to do, then that's a different matter. Clearly, it's something that you want to do, but I would just point out, it does contradict your statements about not wanting to accrue power and authority as the board chair, because it does indeed give you way more power and authority that prior chairs haven't had. Now, if that's something that you want, more power and authority, and, solely to you yourself, the chair, certainly you have the majority here and you can grab that power, but that is what's happening.
Well, that's really nice of you to couch it in those terms, but
It's
that's
the
not
truth.
at all what we're talking about here. This board rule has been in place.
It has not.
It's exactly what, we didn't change this rule that says the chairperson makes these assignments. That was what,
Respectfully, you did.
This
You
ru-
did.
no, what you're saying is that your practice was different than the rule. That's what I'm hearing you're saying. The rule is what it is.
The rule did not speak to it at all. It didn't. And historically, this is not what happened. Again, if you want this to now happen, you clearly can do that, but let's just be clear about what it is.
So let me ask another question. So last week, Allison, you contacted me after our meeting and asked me specifically about the Ag Committee, Preservation Committee,
Mhm.
right? You asked me if you are still being assigned to that committee the next morning, right? Why would you do that if I didn't have the authority under your understanding of these?
Because you hadn't brought forward the list for us to vote on. So historically, what we had been done is the chair would organize the list, make a proposal to the board, and we would take a vote on it. But there wasn't anything, and there was a meeting happening the next morning. So I was asking, your response could have been, I don't know yet, Allison, because we haven't taken a vote on it.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, one reason I've used the word ratified a few times, even though that's not technically what it is, historically, the county has received the recommendations, the appointments from the chair for standing committees and the boards and commissions, and then voted to approve them or ratified them, didn't change them. It was the job of the chair to work with the commissioners and the board to figure out who wants to be on ag preservation, who wants to be on this one, who wants to be there, then would bring that forward. And I mean, Phil could probably speak to this, being on the board for many years, that this is the way that it was done.
Anybody else? Okay.
Well,
Allison?
So again, I just want to state that it's pretty clear cut. As Commissioner Rhodey said, if you want to have the responsibility and you want the power to make all these just from your own self, then that's how we're going to go. If you're asking for the consensus of the board, you're putting forth the work and you're asking for affirmation from your fellow board members, I think you would be showing us that you don't want it to just come from your authority.
Appreciate that. Anybody else? All right, let's take a tentative agreement on this.
We actually got to vote. It's a motion.
With the motion.
And we do a roll call.
Well, the motion is to change the paragraph to read. The chair.
Paragraph 4 of 2.3, right?
Yep.
Sorry, I had my paper shuffled when
Yeah.
you started.
So the first two paragraphs would remain the same. In the second paragraph, the fourth paragraph would read, the chairperson shall appoint all committee assignments for the ensuing year, and maybe we want to add standing committee assignments for all active commissioner assignments on non-standing board committees, county and community-based commissions, authorities, boards such as CMH and Parks and Recreation, the chairperson shall make all assignments for seats that are dedicated to the board, subject to bylaws, ordinances, state statute, and county policies, comma, subject to approval by the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Ready for a vote? All in favor? Oh, we need a roll call? Okay, all in favor say, no, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Maybe you better do a roll call.
Okay. Mr. Kyers,
No.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
No.
Mr. Bonema,
No.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mr. Joritsma,
No.
Mr. Bruger,
No.
and Mr. Teeples.
No.
Motion fails.
Motion what?
Motion fails, sorry. It was 5-6.
Did
Okay,
the motion pass or fail?
fail.
Fail, thank you.
Motion fails, yeah.
What else you got?
I'm going to make another motion then to, instead of what, so it sounds like the majority here did not appreciate giving the authority to the full Board of Commissioners. Instead, we're giving the full authority to John Teeples to make all assignments. I'm going to add instead just after state statute, comma, and county policies.
Support.
I'm sorry, Alice, I'm lost again. We're on 2.3.
So we are still on 2.3.
What paragraph?
And at the end of that last sentence, I would simply add after state statute to add and county policies.
Point of clarification, Allison, is there a county policy that addresses this issue?
Talent recruitment was one of them.
What policy? Sorry, what policy and talent and recruitment are you referring to? What do you mean?
So I would say we could, I guess not just talent recruitment, it could be any county policy that we might find that would subject this to be different. So it says the chairperson shall make all assignments for seats that are dedicated to the board, subject to bylaws, ordinances, state statute, and county policies. And we belabored this one last week when we were talking about the parks assignment. And I'm again bringing it back up. It's really important that we follow our county policies. And if we disagree with a county policy, then we as a board choose to bring up a policy and relook at it and go through the proper procedures.
I'd just say for me, I think we discussed this at length at the last meeting. I'm comfortable as subject to bylaws, ordinances, and state statute, so I'll be voting no. Thanks.
Anyone else? Sylvia?
Yes, I was surprised to actually not see Ann County policies in here already in this draft because according to our conversation last week, we did cover this, that county policies were also important. So personally, I was surprised to not see it in the verbiage this round. And so I would like to see it in there.
Sorry, I got one more comment. I agree that we discussed them and that they were important. However, I read back what we agreed on by tacit agreement, and it was not in there at the time. Thanks.
Anyone else?
What would be your reason why you wouldn't want to put county policies underneath here?
No further discussion from me. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a vote. Joe?
I support following county policies and proper procedure. That's all.
Joe?
Just a quick question, Allison. So I guess the previous motion was to make that subject to board approval. This motion would not make it subject to board approval. I guess if you're in favor of having it be subject to board approval,
I was already turned down because this board believed that John Teeples needs to have the full authority to make all these appointments without having the board approval. So instead of adding that on, if you want to make a friendly motion to change that, Commissioner Zylstra, we can have a conversation on that, but you were a yes vote with me, I believe. And the rest of the board, I would like to see someone else that voted against it make that
That's not-
addition. Otherwise,
that's not on the table. We're talking about her policy, her motion to add county policies to this rule.
I would just say, quick keyword searched the previous 2 years' board rules, and I didn't find the phrase county policy written anywhere.
I would also say it's because we had the whole board having input on what we're doing right now, and you guys just gave the full authority to the chair.
I'm just saying, I don't think in this issue specifically, because it's written in our board rules that county policy wouldn't necessarily apply, but we don't have to write it into the board rules. It's the same as including state statute. If we don't write state statute still applies.
I do see your point, Jordan. I would just also note, though, that sentence itself wasn't in a prior board rule. So that's probably why, and board policies.
Yeah, no,
wasn't in it.
I understand that.
Take a vote, please.
Mr. Barry,
I want to understand the question, the,
so
You want to repeat the motion?
Sure. The motion is for the last paragraph of Rule 2.3 to read, for all active commissioner assignments on non-standing board committees, county and community-based commissions, authorities, boards such as CMH and Parks and Recreation, the chairperson shall make all assignments for seats that are dedicated to the board, subject to bylaws, ordinances, state statute, and county policies. So I simply added "and county policies."
no.
Mr. Bruger,
No.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
No.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Joritsma,
No.
Mr. Kyers,
No.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
and Mr. Teeples.
No.
And the motion fails.
Don't have any other?
Allison's got a couple more, I think.
More?
Other people can keep going too. It's fine. Rule 3.3, I would just recommend that we strike member to
The
change it to
motion, Commissioner?
a motion.
Okay.
Yes, I will make a motion to strike the word member in the title and change it to commissioner.
Mhm. I'll second that.
Any questions or discussion on that issue? Okay.
I see in that paragraph, it does refer to hold harmless all board members. Do we want to correct that to just commissioners as well?
Where?
Second
Where,
line.
Jim?
This is on 3.3,
3.
Jim?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's in 3.2. Well, 3.2,
Just stay with this one a minute, Jim. 3.3 is the motion to change the title to commissioner duties instead of member duties.
Okay.
That's the issue. Okay. Justin, could you take a roll on this one?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mr. Joritsma,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
and Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Going back to you, Jim. You,
Looks like the same issue in 3.2. Title of that paragraph, and then in the second line refers to all board members. A couple of times in that paragraph.
so maybe the way to address this, if you don't mind, Jim, is we want consistency, right? And whether it's member or commissioner, but it should all be commissioner throughout the whole document. So wherever the word, I'd propose to amend your motion, that wherever the word member is used, it should be replaced with commissioner throughout the whole document.
Support.
Yeah.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Pretty easy one. We can get through that one. Okay. Allison, back to you.
Other people can stop me as we
I
go
do.
through it.
I do have one, if you, and that is on Allison's first suggested edit. I don't think we did a vote. So if we're doing
Correct.
each of those by vote, we might want to backtrack and take care of that.
So going back to the table of contents,
Contents?
Article 1, I will make the motion to strike the second article.
Support.
See that? It's in the table of contents, clarification. Yep. That's not, seemed like another easy one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you, Sylvia.
Just do a quick one at the moment. So on page 5.1 or Rule 5.1, second page of it, it's the very last paragraph under Rule 5.1, just a simple edit. After the first chair, you just need to insert the word "of." The chairperson of the board shall select the chair of each standing committee.
Got a motion?
I'll make a motion to insert the word "of."
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Grammar.
So you guys all see it?
Grammar. Missing word.
Yep. This needs the word of each. Okay. Okay. Do we have a second? Okay, this is another one. Seems like it's easy enough. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that editorial edit? Okay.
Can I just do another simple one at the
Sure,
moment,
please.
since we're on the roll with those? On Rule 6.3, very last sentence, I'll make the motion to add a comma after the word discretion.
Second.
Second it. Everybody see where that is?
Mhm.
You vote?
Mhm.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that editorial? No. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
trying to do the quick ones right now.
Go Grammar, go.
Okay, that's all I have for the simple ones. I think we all had a longer email that we all received, and so I'll let John maybe carry on with some of the other items in the standing rules. At the moment, I do want to address standing committees as well, if we could talk about that.
Whatever you want.
Okay, so under 5.1, I would make a motion to add a couple extra letters under Planning and Policy Committee. I'm not sure if you guys are going to want to hear it as all one or two, so let me propose it. I'll make the motion to add an item called broadband. We got rid of, I guess I'll see if I get a second first.
Sure, support.
Since we got rid of that standing committee, I thought there is still work that happens with broadband, and I would think that the body of this board would appreciate having that come to planning and policy.
I have no problem with that.
Absolutely.
Support that. Yeah. Yeah.
We vote.
Can we vote? Okay. All in favor of adding broadband to the Planning and Policy Committee
It'd be as item Y.
as item? Sorry. Why?
Mhm.
Friendly amendment there.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, good. Next one.
Okay, I would make another motion to add talent and recruitment subcommittee for appointments underneath planning and policy.
Can you explain that one?
I'm not sure. how
I'll
many-
second it for discussion.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. We also got rid of talent recruitment, and from my perspective, there's going to need to be work that's done as it relates to the interviews. And at this point in time, without having a plan, there's no way for the work to be done without creating a special committee. And so this way you could create a subcommittee from planning and policy as it relates to talent recruitment. And I just wondered what the rest of you thought on that.
I'll throw it out there. I thought we discussed that. And this one I am not clear on where we landed, but I thought you had recommended, Allison, that it was redundant, not redundant, I don't want to put words in your mouth, that going through the Planning and Policy Committee wasn't necessarily necessary, but that it could be a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee. I think I added the word ad hoc of the main board. Remember that? And I don't care where we.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a plan because if we approve the rules today, I'm just concerned that there's no process in place.
I would have no problem if we grant the authority to the Planning and Policy Committee to create a talent and recruitment subcommittee if we feel that's necessary. But we could also do that as a full board at a later date as well. So I am indifferent, I think.
And that's where I was coming from and trying to consolidate to two committees, because I knew that if periodically, if we needed a ad hoc special committee, we could just work it through the board. So we don't have to create overburden to the plan. I don't really care. But again, I'm trying to streamline what we do and because we know we're going to have to do, we're going to do recruiting, right? And we know that there's going to be a committee like that. So I thought we'd work it through the board, frankly, but Sylvia.
Yeah, I guess I would have a suggestion of adding it as a third committee. And a couple thoughts. One is, and maybe that's not a good idea. So in thinking, Allison, about how you handled things, I think you felt maybe the votes were redundant, that it doesn't have to come from the subcommittee and then be voted on, in that committee and then go to the board. And so I don't know, practically speaking, if it's best to just have it directly under the Board of Commissioners so that it doesn't have to go through a second vote. So does that mean that it should be a third committee and maybe the full board, the full board's not on it? Or I don't know, like how do you think that logistically works out, Allison, if you aren't having another standing committee actually vote on passing it to the full board?
I wondered is there a way to have talent and recruitment as a committee? And instead of all the work going to the committee level to be voted on, could it bypass and go strictly to the board level? Because that's really the only reason why I thought there was merit in not having it. Like, because I think the public sometimes expected to see it coming up on a monthly basis, right? And we didn't need it every month because there weren't interviews every month. And so, but I did think that there was merit in having a separate committee for it. Because there was a lot of work that happened. It's just that it didn't necessarily need to have a meeting all the time.
Right, Joe?
It shouldn't be a subcommittee of planning and push items to the full board. Should either be its own standing committee or a subcommittee of the full board.
Josh?
I agree with that. And because it's not a routine meeting, I think you mentioned that, I'm very comfortable with it being an ad hoc committee of the main board on an as-needed basis. But I will say this, I'm happy to discuss that further, and we could amend these, board rules. I think we've all got the same intent to streamline things. For me, adding it here doesn't make sense. Where we are in the process of approving these board rules, creating another subcommittee, though I appreciate it, I think is, from a process standpoint,
Yeah, I
cumbersome.
guess I'm just worried about it getting lost
Right.
completely, and there will be no process at the moment to
Well-
even get it started. And so I'm just wondering, have you thought through this? That it just hasn't maybe been presented to us yet?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think we know we're going to have periodic need for ad hoc or special committees. We understand that. That's why the special committee rule currently says that we're all involved in that decision, right? So I just don't know what all they're going to be yet. And when those happen on a periodic timetable,
Yeah.
we all have to discuss how we're going to do this.
The only thing I guess I would just say, John, is that for me, it's more than an ad hoc committee because there's work being done throughout the entire year, even if there's not interviews that are happening. Because sometimes in your off times, you're working on other things as it relates to talent recruitment. So I guess I'm just wanting to make sure we don't move forward and lose our opportunity. So,
Bill?
I have a couple thoughts. It does make a lot of sense to have a committee because there is a lot of ongoing work. Whether or not it's a standing committee or not, if it's not, perhaps we could just add a sentence at the end of this Rule 5.1 that gives clarity and says, talent and recruitment shall be an ad hoc subcommittee to the full board. Not a motion, I'm just, if we want clarity, we can add clarity.
So my sense is that well, this issue, recruiting talent will never be missed by this board. When assignments come up, issues come up, we will always be addressing it. I mean, it's an important one, obviously, with a lot of expertise by Allison. So it's never going to get lost. The question is we're talking about is whether it becomes a subcommittee in the rules or something that we will address as we need. Now, again, all of this, going to 2 committees is an experiment. It is simply an experiment to reduce government, right? It may not work. We may need to tweak this in a few months, right? So this is an attempt now to we know the issue's there. We know we're going to have to get to it, but how we get to it and when we get to it, I'd like to be able to talk about it as a group and not put too much structure around it now, which is what we're trying to hopefully do here. Josh?
I just want to, listening to everything here, great conversation. Rule 5.2, special committees. One advantage to those who are opposed to giving John the authority to make all appointments. One advantage to the special committees is that the chairperson's authority is only to appoint the chair of a special committee. The rest of the committee members, if it were an ad hoc committee, have to be approved by everybody here. So, for those of you who voted in favor of that, I might suggest we actually leave it as is, making sure that we know it, as Allison pointed out, that it become an ad hoc committee, because then everybody gets a say in who's on that committee. If it's a standing committee, it's only John. If it's an ad hoc committee, we all get a say. Sorry, it's only the chairperson who happens to be John at this time.
Because I don't want the power.
I served on talent recruitment for quite a while too, and I thought the way the administration had it laid out, it was really an easy thing to do. I mean, they had it all lined up, they contacted all the people, they gave it all the information. Lined up for us. They gave us all the information. I mean, it didn't take that long. Either committee was fine for me. I could see it go as planning policy, it go a consent item under the full board. So it works either way for me. So that's my opinion.
Go ahead.
Jim, you got something to say?
This kind of feels like an ad hoc committee that would fall under the 5.2 special committee structure.
As long as we
Anybody else? Allison, anything else?
I appreciate Phil's comments. I would just note that I would say since 2020, there has been a huge increase in applications of people wanting to serve in the county. And so that has increased the level of work in talent recruitment. And I appreciate, I think that's probably exactly what you did have, Phil, was how it was laid out for you, but it has changed in the last 4 years. I would also say that there's work that's going to be coming up here shortly, and without just knowing, for example, who is going to serve on the committee, like this board doesn't currently know who's responsible for doing interviews because anyway,
Yeah, we understand.
there's just a lot of gray.
I know. Okay, Justin, can you take a roll on this one?
Can you repeat the motion
Yeah,
that we're
please.
voting on?
Motion was, is to add talent and recruitment under the policy and planning committee
As item Z.
as item Z.
I guess I'm just,
Right.
yeah, I'm not sure where I stand on it because I just was hoping to have that discussion with everyone. And what I'm hearing from everybody is maybe not under planning policy. Is that kind of what I'm seeing from everybody? If that's the case, then I would just withdraw my motion.
We're not going to forget it. We can't, it's too important. It's going to be slapping us in the face So we can't
2 weeks.
avoid it, so we know. Okay, what else, Allison?
Mr. Chair, could I just have a quick point of reference here? So we are furiously taking a bunch of notes to presumably add to another red line document to ensure all these changes are made. I'm just wanting to double check to make sure Mr. Jordan is also taking notes here. I'm going to have to leave at 9:30 for another meeting. So just wondering if we need to bring additional staff from the clerk's office up. Historically, this is a corporation council document. Just want to make sure Mr. Jordan's taking notes. Otherwise, we'll bring another staff person out.
These,
Rest assured, I am
Okay,
taking
good.
notes, but
Perfect.
I wouldn't mind another set of eyes.
Well, we are taking notes and I'm going to leave and Rachel's going to come up. So
Okay.
okay. Could you take a roll call on this? Oh, no, you withdrew the motion.
withdrew the motion.
Okay. Allison, next one.
I don't have any further ones that are just for me.
Anyone else? Okay, can we take a vote on the board rules as amended today?
Well,
Well, there
is that the final version?
Yes.
it's,
What?
might be a procedure thing. We amended them. Well, I guess it is
Subject
as amended.
As
The
amended.
agreements we made.
these are
today.
ultimately amendments to the motion
Yeah.
Right.
right now that we're working through.
So
Mrs. Medema,
We're done with the amendments.
Mhm.
Now we're,
I assume, oh, sorry.
yeah,
we're back to the original
to the
motion.
original motion.
Correct.
To approve and adopt the rules of the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners as discussed and amended. For those of you who made the motion, maybe we need to strike the at the meeting of January 7, 2025. Should just say as amended. Friendly suggestion.
Support.
I don't remember who made the original motion. I don't want to, I think you guys have to.
Mr. Moss seconded it.
Oh, you
and
did?
Mr. Kyers moved.
Guys moved. You're good with that, friendly? There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the vote on the original motion. Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mr. Jortsma,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
No.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
No.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel, and Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Okay, there's no committee reports. It's the second public comment period. Anybody like to make a public comment?
John Jack is leaning in.
Are you leaning, Jack?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Now that the rules have been adopted, I recall from the last meeting, there was the discussion as it pertained to Rule 2.3. And that had to do with the chair only, instead of 2 years, it would be 1 year. And we talked, I think, that you as the chair would have to resign and then be reappointed per the board rules.
So let me ask you this, Jack, because I looked at this again. The existing board rules say that the chairman serves for one term.
Prior now and the existing.
And what this change dealt with was to limit the board to no more than a maximum of 2 one-year terms. So, and you said in your email last week that there had been a resolution back in prior to 23 that had appointed the board chair to 1 year. So we're not changing that. That resolution still stands. All we're doing is limiting that the chair can only serve for a maximum of 2 one-year terms. But your rule and the resolution that you referred to already say that it's a 1-year term.
The only thing I can say about that is that I think originally when you were sworn in as the chair, it was for 2 years.
No, your rule, so just to I want to make sure we're on the same page, right? I wasn't sworn in for a 2-year term. I was sworn in as a commissioner and then sworn in as chairman, subject to the rules that existed at the time. The rules that existed at the time said that the chair only serves 1 year.
Okay.
And so we're not changing that at all. And you said that there had been a resolution prior to that, so we just want to, we're following the existing rule. 1 year, chairman sits for 1 year. What we did here, so that there wouldn't be an abuse of overreach of power, we're putting this chair position to no more than 2 maximum years during a 4-year term. That's what we did just now. Right? Joe?
Michigan law says the chairperson shall be elected each odd-numbered year for a 2-year term, unless the County Board of Commissioners provides by resolution that the chairperson shall be elected annually for a 1-year term.
Correct.
I believe that's why it was always done annually, every year. The resolution was brought every year. I wasn't aware they carried over, but maybe they
Yeah,
do.
I mean, that's just the point. I mean, there's no reason to bring another resolution if it's already there, and it was already there. And so that's the point.
Can I
So,
make,
anybody else on this?
I don't,
Hmm.
just wanted to make the suggestion that the two of you look into it more as needed. And then if we do need you to step down, we do that at the next
Yeah,
meeting,
we can
just
do
because we
that.
got a finance meeting at.
Right.
We're actually on schedule by 2 minutes. I mean, off by 2.
We can do that.
Oh, Allison's got
I
something.
I would just make one note that if there's not any reason not to do it, then why not do it and make it fully abundant, like very abundantly clear. To have another resolution passed, I don't think is going to harm anything.
We may, if it's necessary, we'll do it. But based on your email, it's not necessary. So why create a word? If it's necessary, Jack, then we clearly need to do it, right? So let's talk through it. If you think we need it,
We'll talk.
fine,
talk.
no problem.
Doesn't have to take place today.
Right.
Just.
Yeah, we have to do this right. But the point is, chairman sits for 1 year, period, and no more than 2 during 4 years, period. That's the intent. So, Joe?
Yeah, well, just FYI, we'll have to do it again and remove the language that specifically referenced like a single commissioner. But then we could put it, because it did before, so it didn't apply to you, it only applied to me. But we could put it in place just permanently, which I think is a good idea.
How do you, when you, I just want to understand.
The 2024 resolution referred to, let's see, I think it referred to me specifically, I believe.
It included a commissioner's name.
Oh, it did?
That's your name?
Yeah.
Commissioner Moss shall be elected by the board annually for 1 year. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
So
that-
Jack, you and I look at this issue, and if it's important to bring it back, we will. Okay, got it.
That was only subject to Joe.
Right. I like the idea of changing it, though. I mean,
All right, did we get through public comment? We're done? No?
No public
Somebody wants to make public comment so far? All right, commissioner comments. Sylvia, you want to start it? You're in?
No, I'm
No?
good, thanks.
Kendra? Jim? Good. Doug?
Great, thank you.
Bill?
Nope.
All set?
Good.
Everybody's okay? So am I. Okay, this meeting,
Raise your hand.
go.
yeah, I have a very brief one. Yeah, just I want to thank the board for maintaining prayer in our meetings, and I really support that. And I look forward to continuing that practice.
Good deal. Thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned.